beginning. Just take it all out.
He's having a go at me about my hairstyle. I just want to say,
I said you look like you were
welcome
from
to
Harry
the
Potter.
show. No, what? Hello, my friends, and welcome to the show that never ends. Kieran is having a go about my hair this week. I see you found your little thingy to go.
You're gonna watch this back and then see your hair and be like, "Oh my word, what is going on?" It's fine.
Right.
There you go.
Right. I see you've got your little fluff bit back from last week. You lost your fluff.
There is a special space for it on my desk now.
Okay. Well, off we go then. Well, interesting. This is, saying welcome, my friends, to the show that never ends. It is the end, actually. It's the end of the season. We won't be doing any more. We don't have any England matches over the summer as per normal. And, per normal. Let's speak English. And so that's it until August. Blimey, what are we going to do on a Saturday afternoon? But next time we come back, it will be slightly revamped. I haven't decided what yet, but we're going to probably make it a little bit shorter, etc. And to try and add a little bit more humour. You know, things like, I don't know, hang Kieran upside down and that sort of thing. You know, just
We're not comedians, mate.
Well,
we like to think that we're funny, but we're not. We're probably not that funny.
No. But just a little bit more, less serious. And actually, it's probably me that gets more depressed than you do about Wycombe Wanderers. And we're going to have a lot to be depressed about next year, after all. So we've got to sort of keep our heads up, and we've got the last game to discuss. Both me and Kieran were at Portsmouth. We're at Portsmouth.
You don't see Gary Lineker be like, "Oh, sorry, hang on, I've got a text from the missus. Hold on."
No, but then I don't earn the same wages he does, do
Not
I?
quite.
So yeah, we got Wycombe's game to discuss, and of course the sad news that Oxford will be staying up, and all the details of what's going on in our league and who we can invite and who we can't into our league. We get Reading, Kieran. We get Reading, and I just want to do a tiny little bit on the data on managers. We mentioned, was it last week or the week before, mentioned about whose fault is it, footballers or their managers. Well, I've now got the details on who you can actually blame, explaining that. So let's kick off then, Kieran. Wycombe Wanderers at Portsmouth. Would you like to kick off with where that came from?
Where it came from?
Yeah.
Came from Fratton Park. So
Concrete Fratton Park.
Yeah, it's a bit of a
tip.
How do I say? Yeah, that's the correct word. I wasn't going to use that, but that is the correct word.
We couldn't even get a drink beforehand.
Well, it was at 12 o'clock at midday. Wasn't particularly ideal timing. The ground itself is awful. We'll accept that, despite living in Portsmouth and have done for 4 years now. But the ground is dreadful. It's right next to a big Tesco, though, so if you need your meal deal, it's right there for you. It was a game that didn't matter. It was the battle for 8th, actually. I suppose it did matter if people cared about what league position you came in which it was a battle that we lost. The game was a draw, but we did come 9th, unfortunately, because we didn't win. Realistically, we were right. We were right for large parts of the game. But were we ever really in control of the game? No. Could Portsmouth have scored 6? Probably. Should we have scored any more than we did? Absolutely not.
Well, let me give a few statistics, shall I? A few statistics. He says, looking for them, in fact. You can't see him on air. Where are they? We lost most of the statistics, by the way. Uh, Shots, they had 21, we had 8. Shots on target, they had 9, we had 5. Chances created, they had 16, we had 4. Corners, they had 10, we had 1. Saves made was they saved 3, we had to save 7. Possessions 65.6, we had 34.4. Offsides, they had none, we had 3. Fouls, they had 5, we committed 16. Yellow cards was 1 each. Red cards was 0-0. Just to say, there were 950 Wycombe away fans, of which there were a certain number that couldn't speak English. And on the other hand, you could say there's a certain number of Portsmouth fans that can't speak English as well.
You should probably word that in a sense that there was a group of Spanish fans who support Wycombe all the way from Spain and made the venture all the way from Spain in order to come to our last game.
I'm very good. They are Spanish, not Mexican, aren't they?
The Mexican Wycombe Twitter account. So, and that's the one that gets thrown about a lot. But I think the people who came were from Spain.
Okay.
Don't know. Either way, they were foreign, and they came all the way to Portsmouth.
And there were lots of them.
There were lots of them, and they made noise the whole game. So
they were loud.
Fair enough to them. And thank you to them for making noise the whole game, because
certainly created an atmosphere, didn't they?
Yeah, and made it a bit more entertaining as well.
Yeah.
The Portsmouth fans who were a bit weird, it was the group of year 9s, year 10s in the corner next to the Wycombe fans, and I assume they do this every week with any other fan group, but they were a good laugh as well. Particularly enjoyed those.
Yeah, apart from their age, I was going to say they don't go to the university there, but they won't go to the university there either.
Does seem unlikely.
Yeah.
They were a good laugh though.
They were funny, yeah. Yeah, they tried to pretend they were from Newcastle, didn't they? With their, well, I was going to say sunglasses. You wouldn't wear sunglasses in Newcastle, but they did take all their shirts off and sort of,
despite being in year 10, which is a bit weird.
Yeah, not much to show for it, really.
Did you say what the XG was of that game?
No.
If you didn't, it doesn't matter. Theirs was probably about 6. Don't worry about looking.
Ours was 0.3, wasn't it?
It was 0.3. That makes probably about sense. So obviously McCleary's goal is from edge of the box, probably not very high, and then Wing's goal, which may well be the best goal I've ever seen live.
I was going to say that was our goal of the season, the last goal that we scored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, through Wing's mind, he was just like, stuff it, and just whacked it.
He looked up, he saw what was going on, and he hit a real clean strike over the goalkeeper into the net. Came as a surprise to everybody.
It was brilliant. Well, their 2 goals. They had their corner in the first half, which just is a bit rubbish, really. It shouldn't really ever go in, especially the ones where it's like goes quite level, like is at everyone's head height, and so you expect either the man on the front post or a centre back to get to it, in which they didn't. And then their second goal, Jacobson misses at the back post. So,
yeah,
but then they probably should have scored about. Their bold left back, bless him, had about 5 glorious opportunities.
Number 6, wasn't he? They're number 6.
Yeah,
he missed so many. I mean, if he plays like that every week, they need to get rid of him, because he's taken up somebody. He's obviously good at getting into scoring positions, but that's where the full stop comes in, because he just missed and missed and missed, and they should have been goals.
And you're under the assumption that he
can score.
Just had everyone has their days off, don't they?
Yeah.
And you're under the assumption that because he's a professional footballer, he wouldn't miss that many chances in a row.
Shouldn't.
But there you go.
And on top of that, um, Mr. Goalkeeper for Wycombe, I can't pronounce his name. Pronounce it.
Three act,
Who?
three act.
Right. I'll leave that one to you. He was brilliant, wasn't he?
He always is. Well, I say he always is. His distribution's still a bit crap, but he at shot stopping is very, very good.
Yeah, but
And
he
he
doesn't.
got to things that he shouldn't have done.
He doesn't do what previous goalkeeper does and just put his hand on them and they come back into the 6 yard box. He actually directs them round the post and things
Mm.
out of danger zone. And how he gets to them, I don't know. He was definitely man of the match for Wycombe, and I think that goes to tell you quite a bit actually. Who do you think was happier leaving, Portsmouth or Wycombe?
Quite honestly, I don't think either team or set of fans really cares.
Just were happy
I
to see
suppose
a
in the
final.
sense,
Just happy to see a final good
I
game.
mean, yeah. At the end of the day, that's kind of what we wanted was a just
Yeah, didn't want
game.
to finish on the last few, that's for sure.
No,
I sat on the coach coming back with, well, sat on the way, but on the way back with young. I'm going to say young person. He's only young because of how old I am, really. He, but he was saying that he buys his tickets in packs of three, to the away games and the like, and he really regretted buying this one. And yet he goes to all the away games, and he didn't want to go, but he'd bought the ticket, so that was it. And he was pleased. He did on the way back. I think he was pleased he did because it was such a depressing end, wasn't it? At
mm.
Wycombe, and thank goodness I went. Um, Breath of fresh air that game, even though we could have lost 6-2.
Yeah.
We couldn't have won 6-2, but we could have easily lost 6-2. And
No, it wasn't. It wasn't like we didn't have any chances whatsoever. But in terms of click, I mean, we had that goal at the end that
I
the
was
ref
going to
just
come to
allowed.
that last kick of the game almost, and
That obviously they
we
won't show
scored.
in the obviously they won't show in the highlights, but
No,
there wasn't a big like row about it. But from our point of view, it looked pretty onside.
it did. It did. I mean, I'm quite happy to put my hands up when saying shouldn't have been a penalty, should have been this, shouldn't have been that. What I saw, and I usually get them, I'd say probably 80% right. I would imagine watching sort of match of the day and the stuff in the Premier League on TV and the like. I usually get it about 80% right. I thought he was onside,
Yeah,
and it was Wheeler, wasn't it,
yeah.
who scored, and then it was almost the last kick of the game, and I thought he was onside, but hey, didn't really matter. There you go.
Is what it is.
Is what it is. Not the most disappointing in the end. Thank goodness. I did think it was funny at the end with them all the players coming up and all the staff coming up to wave
Mm.
to everybody. That's all the staff. I thought that was well. Thank goodness. I you're quite this time people actually clapped back at them and stayed to clap back at them, unlike at the previous week at Adams Park where everybody had left 10 minutes early when they did their
Mm.
lap of honour. So happy with this one. Nice to beat Portsmouth though, isn't it?
I mean, it would have been nice, but I don't think we have beaten them in quite a while, have we? Away especially. I don't think I've been from my time being in
We beat them
Portsmouth. I don't think.
2-0 once at home.
Yeah, but my time being in Portsmouth, I don't think we've actually beaten them in
uh,
Portsmouth.
so you still can't wear your Wycombe shirt proud around Portsmouth.
I mean, I still do wear it around
Do
Portsmouth,
you?
and
Do you get away
nobody,
with it then?
nobody cares.
Do they
Nobody
not?
cares.
I
No.
suppose they've been stuck in League One all this time. They've lost that sort of.
Well, to be honest, the environment I'm in is all uni students, and so they know no better.
Okay.
Of
Okay.
this, they're not Portsmouth supporters as such, really.
Right.
So
So was that a fair summing up of the game? We did notice one or two players had already gone on holiday, didn't we?
hmm.
And who was the main one that was on holiday? Without, I know who you're going to say because I watched the same match.
Well, I'm assuming you're going to say Tapazzoli.
Yeah, very disappointing, wasn't he?
Hmm. Well, our mate who we were with, Mister Joshua Willis, was saying he wouldn't mind seeing the back of Tafazzoli. Um,
I get what you
for
mean.
which the reasons he gave were unreliable. Hasn't played 30 games this season, which realistically, if
We
you want what
need,
you're starting
we
centre
need.
backs, you need to be
Mm,
starting more than 30.
yeah.
Um, is getting older now,
Mm.
so likelihood of injury occurring is a bit more regular. And last couple of games has looked like he doesn't really care.
It's like he hasn't been given a contract yet,
Mm.
and he'd be quite happy to move on.
And Josh was saying now that Farino is who he suggests is the best centre back of the club,
He is,
it, he
and he
wouldn't
has
mind
signed
too
a
much.
contract.
And he has signed a contract. He has just certainly been someone who I wouldn't have expected me to have um, changed my opinion of too much on. I didn't think he was very good at all to begin with,
No,
but doesn't put too many foots wrong now whatsoever.
I would
Um,
actually play Farina and Grimmer as my two main centre backs.
at this point, yeah, with the options, absolutely. Um, Barino does tend to be on the right hand side,
Yeah,
um, in which Grimmer would be on the right hand side if he played. So you might be looking for a left sided centre back in the summer. It's definitely an option, isn't it? It's definitely not a bad option from when they have played together. But probably another centre back is due in the
yeah.
summer. And but we were talking about who would be captain, and there aren't as many kind of leaders in the team anymore, are there? Because it's not going to be Jacobson, because Jacobson's not going to play every single game. I don't see Farino as a leader as such. I don't get that vibe from him that like he's not. I mean, obviously, these examples are far and beyond, but like Ferdinand and Terry and people like that, they had like personalities about them, and you kind of get why they're captains.
Well, yeah. When they told you what to do, you wouldn't argue, would you?
No, and Farino, I feel like you could argue with. Um, so maybe a bit more of a leader-centered centre back might be in order in the summer,
Right, right. What?
just to let Rob know.
Just to say, the lineup was four.
4-4-2 to begin with.
Yeah, I don't like that particularly, but it did sort of work for us when and then we got 2-1 up. And this is what I'm bothered about, Mr. Manager. He then changed the format and he turned it into a 4
2-3-1.
4-2-3-1. Yeah. And he changed it. And so, and that didn't work. And they came and scored. And once they had scored, we were stuffed then and couldn't go back to get another goal because
Um,
he changed it to hold on, but it wasn't strong enough ever to hold on by packing out that midfield. And once given the goal away, well, you can go home.
trying to work out if you're being unfair. I don't. 4-2-3-1 isn't necessarily a more defensive formation than 4-4-2.
It's bringing it back
Realistically, mm, but
to supporting your
realistically,
forward. Supporting your forward. You've taken a
yeah,
striker off and you're putting them in midfield to support that striker, but back.
But
And you've
arguably,
got
we had our best spell when we went to 4-2-3-1, which we didn't take advantage of. Um, I don't think the what's his name, the other TJ when he was on as the other striker next to Vokes had more of a free role. It wasn't
yeah,
necessarily um
no,
being a striker. He was kind of like allowed to float all around. I I I'm not sure that he got too much wrong in changing it,
okay.
particularly because it wasn't like we didn't have chances still when we moved that formation, and it wasn't like we weren't conceding chances the whole game. I know this sounds like that I'm just a big Matt Bloomfield fan, and when you have a go at
No,
him
no,
every
I'm
week,
quite happy with you. I mean, that's partly why you're on here, because if I
yeah,
just sat here and said everything I think, that's boring. I need an argument. That's why
yeah,
you have a Conservative and a Labour government, because whoever's Conservatives in, you need people to
there you
argue.
go,
Otherwise, it just,
there you go.
yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't have. I mean, our main outlet still was a long ball to Vokes and to Wheeler, um, to which the crowd from, sorry, Spain or Mexico, we don't know, um, got the hang of, and every time we punted it long, did a cheer, which I found quite entertaining. They evidently know that that is our game plan, which isn't good
Well, you worked
realistically.
that out, did you? God, I couldn't work that out. A game plan of belting it to
Well,
votes.
the fact that the the crowd cheered when we did
How,
that.
how many goals have we actually scored from doing that?
I
Any
can't
idea?
imagine. Well,
Any?
I mean, we used to be quite good at it under Ainsworth, and now we're not for some reason.
Done
But
work, you know.
in saying that, it was probably Vokes' best game for a sodding long time.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And I will also hold my head up, no, my hands up, and say I thought Freeman played pretty well when he came on as well.
Hmm.
There you go. Which is a bit
Yeah,
of a bugger, really, because if Vokes and Freeman play well now, it means, well, we are going to see them both next season, of course.
probably. And brilliant CO Beta again after
Yes, he
months of
came on as
never seeing
well.
him.
And
I mean, he's a weird one. Like, is he going to stay next season? Because I mean, it doesn't look like he's got the manager's blessing, particularly if he's only just
well,
played.
surely he's got to, because somebody's got to play in that place, because oh, what's it? And makes mistakes every game that cost us now, doesn't he?
Mm,
Jacobson,
not
he's
every
costing
game,
us.
but
He's costing us now, isn't he?
he certainly has made mistakes recently.
There's one fatal one every game at least. Or no, they don't necessarily score, but there's one bad mistake in every game out of him now. He can't do it. I thought there was one interesting bit where Vokes's old skill showed itself of getting round the player, and I thought, yeah, that's brilliant quality. Other players couldn't have done that. But then he had to run after it and he couldn't do it. So, all well and fine, sort of getting the ball in front of a player and using great talent to get the ball past him, but then you've got to run, and that he couldn't do. And I thought,
No,
well, that sums it up, really. He's got the skill, he just doesn't have the body to do it anymore. And that's the end
no,
of that, really. Uh, so overall, yeah, I thought McCarthy was the same as per normal. And because Grimmer was missing, of course, injured on holiday, I'll presume by now.
mm,
Um, so that's the end of our games, yeah. It's worth looking at very quickly, if you would like to. League Division One. Who's up? Who's down? Everybody can read this without us using our talent to read a table. Other people can see it anyway. Um, Interesting. Plymouth and Ipswich were up as good as anyway. but they were. And then you've got the next four. The two that were fighting it out were Derby and Peterborough, and Peterborough got that sixth place. So Derby are staying down. Paul is happy because it means he can go and see Derby next year. He missed it this year. If he supports them in any way, surely he shouldn't be happy they're staying down. But there we go. Just so he could get, I mean, he could go and watch them anyway. But so Sheffield Wednesday are going to get Peterborough in the first round of playoffs. Who's going to win? You've got to hope, in some respects, Sheffield Wednesday deserve their place in the final. They've got 96 points, Peterborough 77. A bit unfair, one's got to play the other and Peterborough can win. But hey, Wycombe did that sort of thing and we got up. So tough.
Yeah, I mean,
own fault.
Peterborough have lost 17 games this season. It'd be a bit peak if they went up.
Bit unfair, really.
That's only 6 off of half. So
Barnsley played Bolton, and that's it. That who knows is what I would say of that one. Who knows? I mean, you can look at forms and that sort of thing, but I'm not sure that really gonna count because they both. This is the bad news when you've already got a place in the playoffs, but not a place of automatic promotion, because you start just sort of taking your foot off the pedal a bit. And they haven't won for their last 3 games, Barnsley, and I think that's a bit sort of dangerous when you've done that. That's Barnsley, and of course Bolton, sort of the same, but not. They weren't quite as safe 3 games ago, I don't think. And they've won 2 of the last 3. So my money is, I'm going to say Barnsley. I'm going to put my money on Barnsley. Down the bottom then, good news was MK Dons go down. Shame Oxford didn't. So, hey, Buckinghamshire is ours. Yeah.
I mean, it's not saying much, to be fair. If
why
the best teams are MK Dons.
So crap. So why is Buckinghamshire? Why do we have a decent team?
How many cities
Sorry,
are actually
Wycombe
in
are a decent team, but what I mean is, and yet down the south coast, old Portsmouth, they've got, near them, they've got Brighton, Southampton, Blackpool.
Do you want to know why?
I know where Blackpool is. It's not down on the south coast.
No. Do you want to know why Buckinghamshire is so rubbish?
Because there's no big places in Buckinghamshire.
There's no cities.
No. But, yeah, so I actually fancy going to Blackpool up there because they're coming down. But anyway, Forest Green, well done, Forest Green, for at least getting into League One. I thought, well done you for even being there. I hope they enjoyed it and didn't just feel like they got battered every game. I mean, they got the goal difference minus 58.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, and they lost by quite a few, didn't they? 27 points. Accrington that go down 44. Then it's Morecambe. And there's your 3 poor teams. Morecambe, Accrington and Forest Green. The unrich, and I will get to that in a minute. And then MK Dons. Cambridge saved themselves, and Oxford just about managed to win a couple of games out of their last 20 that saved them. And then, of course, coming down are Reading,
Wigan,
and Blackpool. So our league is looking pretty packed with half-decent teams.
The kind of gap in terms of the stature of teams between League One and the Championship is a lot less than it used to be. Because more big teams are getting created because that's just what happens.
Yeah, they keep thinking if we build bigger stadiums, we'll get more crowds, we'll have more money, and then we'll be more successful. But of course, if everybody's doing that, there's only so many winners. Only so many people go up and so many people come down. And you can't beat that. That's the figures. You can build as big a stadium as you bloody like. Hey, MK Dons have got their massive stadium, but it don't mean anybody goes, and then they've got to pay for it.
Mm.
So I know it's not theirs; it's on loan, isn't it? So they rent it, don't they? Because they were talking about building a new one to make money. Of course, they're not going to now, surely. That might have been a plan years ago, but it can't be now. But they rent it, costs them a bloody fortune. If they go down, you see, they can't. That's why all their players are on loan. They can't afford anything. And I think this going down, I wonder, I wouldn't mind looking up the facts and figures and the numbers and the costs and stuff. And I bet you MK Dons are in trouble. Now, any team that a Derby, at least they fill the bloody place.
Mm.
But will they keep filling it is the question. How far down do you go when people stop going? You've got your fans from 20 years ago. What about the 11-year-olds of today who support Barcelona and Manchester City? Are they going to go to a Division 1 football team to watch Derby versus Cheltenham? See?
This is where you need the fathers of this world to take their kids along.
Hey, Kieran, that's how you support such a big team like Liverpool.
Like you asked me who my favourite player was.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, at least you did.
how I even chose him, I have no idea.
Steven Gerrard, yes, yes. Well, it was never going to be, Frank Lampard, was it?
Well, not at this point, no. Would you have been? I assume you probably actually would have prevented me from supporting Manchester United, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't have let you. No, that was never
No.
going to happen. No, no. We almost got our perfect weekend because Liverpool won, United lost, and Wycombe drew. So, okay. Do football managers matter? Discussed managers previous about who's to blame, footballers or their managers. Well, let's see. Managers can't perform magic, although some people seem to think they can. They're not David Copperfield or Harry Potter. They can't work miracles or sprinkle some magical dust to make players know how to play football. Spending hours on analysis isn't very useful. It doesn't put you in better conditions to win the game. The tactics, the schemes, they're all bullshit. Of course, tactics matter, but players win the game. For 45 minutes at a time, players make their own decisions. Football is a continuous sport in which the coach has barely any influence, less than in any other sport. Success depends on having top players, and top players cost money. It's impossible to achieve results without spending a lot of money. Where you finish in the league depends on the money you've spent. It's a statistical fact. Clubs can change coaches, but if the players are the same, results stay the same. Now, they're all comments managers have made. Basically, they seem to be putting themselves down so that they deserve to get paid at all. They're all saying it's got nothing to do with them. And of course, they say these things when they lose, don't they? But they love that pat on the back and thank you for being manager of the month. tap, tap, tap. And every time you go into a pub and a team aren't doing well, it's the manager's fault. Let's sack him. Do we sack him? Don't we sack him? Let's get a new manager. Life will change. Data. I'm going to just pass this one across you and you tell me what you think. Data on managers. Do wages win games? Well, and if you run a team with or without a manager, would it really make any difference? That's what we're asking. I've made a few comments recently about Wycombe's manager, but here we go. If you look over a 10-year period of money spent on Premier and Championship teams, this is facts, by the way, by Socceronomics, they call themselves, and they've actually sort of taken all the Championship teams, all the Premier League teams, and put them in order of how rich they are over that 10-year period and how much they pay for players. Quite simply, the more money, the better players bring more success. Not the managers, not you take the manager's money out of the equation. And if you just put them in order of how rich they all are, you would get 90% correct on how successful they've been. That is an awful lot, isn't it?
I mean,
that's suggesting you could have a stuffed teddy bear running your football team and you're still going to get 9 out of 10 times you're going to get the result you want.
which is interesting to say. I'm thinking of Spurs and Chelsea this season. Obviously, they've not had success whatsoever, and yet they've spent an awful lot of money on players. But then they've achieved the same results despite whatever manager's been in charge. So
can I just add a little thing to that equation while you think about this? But on a short-term basis, that's a 10-year sort of stretching it out. Yeah. On a short term, year to year, you will get 70% correct. So there's on league positions over 1 year, because every now and again, there's a little bit of a kick in there, like Leicester winning the league when in fact they really weren't the most successful. So there's a 30% chance, there's a 30% bit that can be influenced by something other than money. Okay. But is that manager influence, or is it luck, injuries, and referees? So I'm suggesting you stick luck, injuries, referees, and managers into a pot, all of that stirred up, and that makes a difference in a year. Is that fair enough? Because 70% are it's basically down to pay. Whoever has that bunny up the front with long hair and scores 40 goals in 3 weeks. I mean, if he played for Brentford would score more goals. I mean, if he played for Holmer Green, he would score goals, wouldn't he?
It's making it all sound very simple when I'm not sure it is as simple as that. But then I suppose the people who run all these football clubs, potentially the margin between how good they actually are at all their jobs might be less than what the players are, if that makes sense. So at the end of the day, it is the players that make the difference, but it's the marginal gain of what the people can do in the club that actually make it very, very successful when they weren't very successful before. Like Liverpool and Man City wouldn't have got to where they have done without people in the background being a heck of a lot better than others at like Manchester United and Arsenal, who were much better at the time than when City and Liverpool started. Otherwise, there would be no way they could catch them.
Because the question is, would Southampton go down, whoever managed Southampton, and would Manchester City win the league, whoever managed Manchester City?
Mm, I don't think City would have had the success they have had Pep not been in charge, though, because they've been able to be so unbelievably dominant under him. Whereas if you had another brilliant manager in place, such as, let's say, Pochettino, I don't think they would have been as successful.
Even though this is telling us over that period of time that they got the money, 90% of the time they would have come top of the league. Still, they've still failed a couple of times. So, in fact, they're less than that 90%. So, in fact, they failed even on the figures, on the data. They haven't done as well as the average other teams
Mm.
based on the money they earn. They should have won every year. And that is what the data would suggest. 90% of the time, they should have won the league. And they haven't. They failed a couple of times.
And yeah, so under Pep, they've won 4 out of 6.
Yeah.
And it's looking like it could be 5 out of 7.
Which is, yeah, 5 out of 7. So actually, that's pretty close, really, to the 90%. But it is suggesting
It's a
that
little bit off,
if
but
I'd managed
yeah.
them, they would have won that as well.
Yeah. Which I'm not convinced by, I'll be honest with you, Des.
Okay. Okay. And just to suggest also, I just want to, so people want to think about that maybe. Um, I don't know. But just to say the other thing, couple of things, poor run of form changes when everybody dumps their manager and suddenly things get better and all that. There is statistics that suggest actually it sort of works to start with and it soon fades. And in fact, on average, if you didn't change the manager, that run of form, all teams have a bad run of form and a good run of form. And that good
Mm.
run of form will turn up for most teams. It's a question of when. If you bring a new manager in, it's more likely to happen now rather than in 10 games' time. But
Mm.
every team goes through a good and a bad time. Um, and the last one I want to mention is that on here on football365.com, they did, because do you know how many managers there's been knocking around in the Premier League this year? 40. Okay. Out of 20 teams. Of course, 20 of them are still there, of course. Is it still 20 still there? Probably, yeah. This
Mm.
is including the sort of fake managers, if you want to call them that. A bit like fake news, really, isn't it? And they put them in order on here. I'm not going to read them all out. That'd be really boring. The funny part is Frank Lampard comes in the bottom 5 twice,
Mm.
which I think is brilliant.
Bless him.
So out of 40, he comes 40th. I think that's probably fair enough. Scott Parker comes 39th. Steven Gerrard, 38. Christian Stellini for Tottenham, 37. Then Frank
Mm.
Lampard at 36. So I thought that was funny. And just to say, I'll tell you the top five, which so we sort of keep up to date. They put Roberto De Zerbi, is it?
Brighton, yeah.
Brighton. Yeah, he comes at fifth. Pep Guardiola fourth. Eddie Howe third. And Mikel Arteta second. Who do you think they put number one?
Thomas Frank.
No, Unai Emery.
Oh
Which
yeah.
is an interesting one because actually, if you look again at all their expected goals and this and that and the other and all that data that I've talked about before, they are actually overperforming. In other words, if you look at their expected goals, they're scoring 2 ton more than they were expecting. A bit like Wycombe scoring 2 yesterday when actually their expected was 0.3. Normally, if they'd played that game, they would have got slaughtered. But as it so happened yesterday, they scored one off the halfway line, etc., etc. But on average, Wycombe would have lost that game. And they are overperforming and have done for half the season. But next season, that'll change and go the other way on average. So, in fact, he shouldn't really be named the top manager. And working on the theory, he only has something like about 10-15% of it's got anything to do with him. One would suggest maybe they'd underperformed when he first joined them. And in fact, he should be blamed for them not doing so well up until now. Who knows? But I'll leave that one with everybody else. Okay, Kieran, to finish, is there any of the games in the Football League that we've had since last Sunday you would like to mention? Anything important to do with football? Anything to add?
Anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
Well, we might as well thank Manchester United for letting Liverpool back in the race. With 2 losses in a row, that was kind of them. And Newcastle losing to Arsenal, we're ever so slightly catching up. Not well, it's the hope that kills you, and I'm sure it will kill us because I still doubt that we'll do it. But we're not as far off as we had been.
And there's
Man,
been an awful lot of goals knocking around this year, haven't there? I noticed Fulham won today 5-3
Fulham wants
against
to say
Leicester.
5-3. Everton have beaten Brighton 5-1 for whatever bizarre reason.
There's been
Um,
some very odd scores this year, I have
it
to
look,
say.
yeah, it looks like Everton are leading towards safety because they are 2 points in front of Leicester, Leeds, and Forest. And I wouldn't bet against Everton going and winning another game, especially with Leicester's last 3 being against Liverpool, Newcastle, and West Ham. Leeds as well, their running's really awful. So it's going to be really interesting to see who actually stays up. Because we did have that kind of like 10 horse race where everyone was going down. It has kind of capitulated into 2 spaces being taken up by either Everton, Leicester, Leeds, and Nottingham Forest. It'd be very interesting if one of them's not Nottingham Forest as well, because Leeds, Leicester, and Everton are 3 massive teams who you expect to be in the Premier League. So we'll see what happens there.
Now,
Chelsea won a game finally.
finally, who do you think is going to offer Liverpool a chance? Newcastle or Manchester United?
Let's have a look at their fixtures.
Well, Newcastle got Leeds, Brighton, Leicester, and Chelsea.
Leeds, Brighton, Leicester. Possible.
You think that possible?
Mm.
Yeah.
And then United have Wolves, Bournemouth, Chelsea, and Fulham. That looks less likely. Because both Newcastle and United would have to drop points in 2 games in order to give Liverpool a chance. Liverpool, of course, have to win every game for
And
it to even happen.
that's right. And Liverpool's fixtures, though, I mean, they've come through their difficult stuff, haven't they?
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, in fact, they, their difficult one is Aston Villa, but they've got Leicester, Aston Villa, and Southampton is their last game. And I'll tell you what, if that all comes together on that last day, you've got to say, if it makes a difference, that last day is in Liverpool's hands, is it not?
Oh, 100% if we're in the driving seat at that point. I would be. I actually think the tough one will be Leicester because our away form has been so bad this season. Leicester have to get a result.
Right.
Um,
And that's next
Aston
Monday.
next
Next Monday.
Monday.
Hmm.
Aston Villa is I back Liverpool at home 100% of the time, whoever it is. So I'm more worried about Leicester. Um, but again, the other 2 teams still have to drop points in 2 games, which I might happen. Not convinced though.
But they let Liverpool at least have European place.
Yeah, we'll get Europa League at the very least, which is fine, I guess.
Because
Um,
you must pick up 1 point. You know, you must pick up 1 point. That's what you need, isn't it? 1 point.
from what?
The rest of the games to have that place.
Uh, no, because if Tottenham win all theirs, then they go to 66. Oh, Europa League. Oh, I could be wrong. They do it
Yeah,
weird on BBC Sport.
I think you're probably okay. I think you've got that. You've got European,
Oh,
which actually was a bit of a surprise. If you look back, sort of 5 weeks ago, that was a no-goer, and that was so important to Liverpool to at least play in Europe, and they've got it. And the last thing I want to say is answer just one thing before we say goodbye for the last time ever. Well, this year, this season, is Arsenal or Manchester City? Yeah, pointless question, that
I
isn't
was
it?
going to say I
Pointless.
think it's a bit obvious at this point.
It is a bit pointless at this side. We all know the answer, don't we?
What
Uh,
what did I say? As whilst Arsenal were so far in front, didn't I always say that City would come back?
yeah, it's funny. Arsenal messed it up in 3 games, and it was soon as the pressure was on at the end, they couldn't put it together, could they? And as
No.
soon as that pressure was taken off, and they're now behind running for it with nothing to lose, they start playing brilliant football again without a problem.
Yeah.
And the question has to be, what influence did the manager have? Any?
Lack of influence is the question.
Any? And he comes second in top managers. Why? Any? You could say he lost them the league, could you not?
Essentially,
Yeah, I
we
think
don't
so.
know. We don't know.
And as for Manchester City, who won them the league, well, I think they're so bloody sort of we're the best attitude that puts them. They don't need Pep Guardiola to tell them they're the best. They bloody well know it. They paid the most, and that
Hmm.
would be my answer to that. I mean, that blonde, tall kid up front, he knows
Ireland.
he's the best. He doesn't need Pep Guardiola to tell him, now look, you use the inside of your right foot and you just tap that ball over the line. And in fact, the only place he needs Pep Guardiola to give him a slap is when he hands the ball to another player to get a hat trick, and he should have taken it. That's where he needed Pep Guardiola to give him a slap. And there we go. Anything else, Kieran, or do we say goodbye? Just at that point, scratch the back of your head, and we're going to say goodbye. Please, please keep us around. We will be back. Um, sort of. We will be back. I'm going to have a new screen.
Oh no.
Oh,
Here
yeah.
we go.
Yeah. You
It really
can
is
have
a new
this one.
season.
You can have this one. Right.
Well, I mean, who knows where I'll be at in September or
Yeah.
August?
Because if you don't have any money to pay to live here, mate, you're going to be in the garden.
Exactly.
So, in fact, you might not need this because you're going to be in with grass behind you anyway. There we go. Okay, everybody. Kieran, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And I'll say goodbye. I hope you had a good season. We saw.
It's been a bit